Well, good Thursday morning, everyone. Good to see you. I'm glad you tuned back in. This week we are going through one of the most profound passages that I know of in the Bible. When a new believer comes to me, I say you start to read the Bible at John chapter 1. Read through the Gospel of John, but John chapter 1 is key because it so sets out and describes plainly who Jesus is and how you can know him, which we come to today. Now, in the first couple of days here, we went through the first 5 verses. I want to bring you up to date by reading those verses. They're not long. Here we go. Verse 1, John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. And we determined that that word that is referring to is that person of Jesus. Look at verse 14. The word became flesh and dwelt among us. It's Jesus he's talking about. Jesus was with God at creation. And then it says, verse 3, through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. And that's where we left it. Jesus came into the world. He created the world. He gave inanimate matter life, physical life. No other way that life could begin. And then he brought the light, talking about the spiritual life. And it becomes very clear in just a moment. Now, we kind of brings us to verse 6. And in verse 6, a new person is introduced in the narrative. And it says, verse 6, there came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. And by the way, it's John the Baptist, not John, the Apostle John, who was writing this book. And I know that can get confusing sometimes. It really does. But you be clear. John the Baptist had a particular role to fill. And so did the Apostle John. And Apostle John's role was to write about all that he saw and that was happening. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him, that is the light, and the light was Jesus, through him all men might believe. He himself was not the light. John the Baptist was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light, the true light that gives light to every man coming into the world. Now, the Hebrew people, the Jews, knew that there would be someone coming to announce, when the Messiah would come, there would be a forerunner, a witness that what's about to happen would come to them. And that was just part of their belief system. And you know why? Because in Isaiah, written hundreds of years before this event. In fact, that's why they'd been looking for the Messiah for hundreds of years. There were testimonies of the prophets that he would be coming. But prior to the Messiah coming, in Isaiah 40, verse 3, it says this, a voice of one calling in the desert, prepare the way for the Lord. Make straight in the wilderness a highway for our God. They knew that one was coming to pronounce the coming of the Messiah. And it even said in Isaiah, but they seem to miss it, a highway for our God. That indeed, he would be God himself. And that's exactly what happened, isn't it? I don't blame them at all for not understanding that. I mean, how did they not see it in all the prophecies that it would be God himself who was the Messiah? because it's almost so hard to believe that God would step down out of heaven, take on the lowly form of man, well, and initially in the form of a baby, and humble himself to do that. So they knew someone was coming, and that someone coming turned out to be a man named John the Baptist. And verse 10 goes on. He was in the world. This is now talking about Jesus, that John would talk about this coming light, the Messiah. And Apostle John is describing him. Verse 10, he was in the world, and though the world was made through him, so he's repeating that Jesus is the creator of the world did not recognize him. And we know that's painful truth. That's why there's Easter, isn't it? That this babe took on the form of a man and died on the cross. That was the end of the story. He, Jesus, came to that which was his own, and yet his own did not receive him. And that's true to this day, isn't it? Even though Jesus conquered death, rose from the dead, makes spiritual life available, many people reject him. And sometimes it's just a rejection by just not even thinking about him. He's not a part of my life. Why not? Why not? Well, we have to think that through, don't we? Because Apostle John goes on and he describes, how can you have that light? How can you have that light of eternal, of living forever with Jesus? Who wouldn't want that? Verse 12, yet to all who received him, to those who believe in his name, he gave the right to become the children of God. Children born not of natural descent, that is life. We've all been born, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. If you want to be a child of God, you receive Jesus, according to verse 12, which, by the way, if you memorize any verse, could you memorize John 1, verse 12? Yet to all who receive him, to those who believe in his name, he gave the right to become the children of God. Whenever anyone asks you, well, how do I become a Christian? Just receive Jesus in your life, make him the Lord of your life, believe in him, and that makes you a child of God. I don't know who would not want that. And all the evidence is there that, in fact, Jesus did all that he said, that the Bible says he did, that he conquered death. Really, I think it's more just ego than anything, that we don't want to display. We want to be the king of our life. We live for self, ego, pride, whatever you want to call it. And Jesus is asking, believe in him, put him on the throne of your life, make him the one who you follow. And that brings the happiest life. And not only is it a happy, purposeful life, but it lasts forever. Friend, if that doesn't describe you, I just pray that you'll think about it all day and then make the decision just to pray and ask him into your life. It'll change your life. God bless. We'll see you back here tomorrow. We'll end up this passage. It's a great one. See you tomorrow.
Oh, come to the Father through Jesus the Son, and give